The rain poured heavily outside the glass windows of the towering skyscraper as Lily Carter clutched a worn-out envelope in her trembling hands. Her heart pounded with anxiety and shame. She had rehearsed her words 1,000 times, yet they all vanished the moment she stood in front of the grand office door that read, "Ethan Blake, CEO." Her father's debt had haunted her for years. The hospital bills, the loans, the endless letters demanding repayment, and now, she was here to pay the last of it. It wasn't much, barely a fraction of what her father owed, but it was all she had saved after working 2 jobs and sacrificing her dreams. When the secretary finally called her name, Lily took a deep breath and stepped into the office. Inside, the air felt cold and distant. Ethan Blake sat behind his massive mahogany desk, his sharp gray eyes fixed on his laptop screen. He didn't look up immediately, and when he finally did, Lily froze. He was younger than she expected, maybe in his mid-30s. His expression was unreadable, but there was a strange emptiness in his eyes, the kind of loneliness money could never heal. "Yes," he asked in a deep, calm tone. "Can I help you?" Lily's voice trembled as she stepped closer. "Mr. Blake, I'm here to settle my father's debt." He raised an eyebrow, curiosity flickering in his eyes. "Your father's debt," she nodded, placing the envelope on his desk. He borrowed money from your company years ago. Before he passed away. I've been saving since then. It's not much, but I wanted to pay what I can." Ethan leaned back in his chair, his gaze shifting from the envelope to her tired face. "You do know that debt was written off years ago, right?" "I do," she whispered, "but he always said a promise is a promise. He raised me to be responsible for what we owe." For a long moment, Ethan said nothing. The sound of the rain filled the silence. Then, slowly, he stood up and walked around his desk until he stood just a few feet from her. "Tell me something, Miss Carter," he said softly. "Why go through all this trouble? Most people would have moved on." She bit her lip. "Because my father died believing he failed. He wanted to make it right, and now, it's my turn to finish what he started." Something in her words struck him deeply, a quiet pain that mirrored his own. He'd lost his parents long ago, and though he built an empire, he never truly felt at peace. Responsibility had always been his burden too, but his success came at the cost of connection. Ethan looked at the envelope again, then at the girl standing in front of him, drenched, nervous, yet proud. He took a breath and said, "You owe me nothing." Lily blinked in confusion, but he smiled faintly, the first real smile he'd shown in years. "If you really want to repay something, have dinner with me tonight." Her eyes widened. "Dinner? Why?" "Because," he said with a soft chuckle, "I think we both could use a little company." That evening, Lily sat across from him at a quiet restaurant overlooking the city lights. She still couldn't understand why a powerful CEO would want to share dinner with someone like her. Ethan noticed her unease. "Relax," he said gently. "This isn't a business meeting. Just 2 people having dinner." She smiled nervously, glancing down at the simple dress she'd borrowed from her roommate. "You probably eat with people far more important than me." He shook his head. "You'd be surprised how lonely this world can be at the top." As they talked, Lily shared stories of her father, how he used to fix broken toys for neighborhood kids, how he never let hardship kill his kindness. Ethan listened intently, genuinely captivated. It reminded him of the humanity he had long forgotten while chasing profits and power. For the first time in years, he laughed, really laughed. And Lily, though still shy, began to see past the businessman to the man behind the suit, someone kind, lost, and maybe just as broken as she was. When dinner ended, he walked her to her bus stop, despite his driver waiting nearby. The rain had stopped, but the air smelled fresh and alive. "Thank you," Lily said softly. "For dinner. You didn't have to." "I wanted to," he interrupted gently. "You reminded me of something I'd forgotten, what it feels like to care without expecting anything in return." She looked at him, her heart fluttering for reasons she couldn't explain. "You're not as cold as people say you are, Mr. Blake," he chuckled. "And you're not as ordinary as you think, Miss Carter." They stood in silence, just looking at each other, before she finally stepped onto the bus. Ethan watched as it disappeared into the night, an ache growing in his chest, the ache of losing something he didn't even know he was missing. Days turned into weeks, and Ethan found himself thinking about her constantly. He'd see her in the simplest things, a cup of coffee, a rainy evening, the sound of laughter from his staff. One day, he sent her a message through his assistant. "Dinner. My treat again. Same place." She almost said no. It felt improper, but something inside her, curiosity, maybe hope, made her say yes. That night, they met again. This time, it felt different. The conversation flowed easily, their laughter filling the quiet corners of the restaurant. Ethan shared stories about his struggles, how he'd built his empire from nothing, only to realize he had no one to share it with. "I have everything money can buy," he said softly, "but somehow, it feels like I have nothing at all." Lily reached across the table, her eyes kind and full of warmth. "Then maybe you've been buying the wrong things." That simple line hit him harder than any business failure ever could. Over the following months, their friendship deepened. Ethan began inviting her to company events, charity dinners, and small get-togethers. People started to notice the change in him. He smiled more, laughed more, and even started showing genuine care for his employees. Lily brought color back into his world. One evening, after a long board meeting, Ethan found himself standing at the same restaurant balcony where they first dined. Lily joined him, her hair tied up, her smile soft and familiar. "Do you ever regret meeting me that day?" she asked quietly. He turned to her, eyes glimmering. "Meeting you was the only thing that's made sense in a long time." The city lights reflected in her eyes as the wind carried a hint of rain again. She blushed, looking away, but he stepped closer. "You came to pay a debt," he said softly, "but you ended up giving me something far greater, a reason to feel alive again." Tears welled in her eyes. "Ethan," he smiled gently, "and if you'll let me, I want to spend every dinner from now on with you." Years later, people still whispered about Ethan Blake, the cold, lonely CEO who changed after meeting a humble girl who came to repay her father's debt. They said love softened him, made him human again. And on quiet nights, when the rain tapped against the windows, Ethan would hold Lily close, whispering, "You owe me nothing, except this life we built together." Because sometimes, debts aren't paid with money, they're paid with kindness, with second chances, and with love that heals what the world once broke. And that, in the end, became the greatest repayment of all.